first as a construct, and because people generally don't. And Richard Dyer has written a book about it that fascinates me.
I think there's a way in which white people are always represented as just being ordinary humanity. They're presented as kind of the norm, but without even really thinking of it as the norm. So what I wanted to try and look at is the fact that whiteness is just one particular way of being human, which has a history, which has been put together in particular ways, has conventions of representation and so on.
You can't go lynching me. I'm a white man.
I remember that film, and Richard Dyer's book is a lot about movies and popular culture. But I wanted him to go back to where the idea of whiteness began and tell me why he uses the word raced. What do you mean when you say raced?
Well, I think there's a sense in which a representation of a white person is essentially a representation of a human being. Whereas a
template human being.
Yes. Whereas a representation of a non-white person, and we could talk about that term, non-white, because it's sort of problematic, but anyway, a person who is not white, is always, therefore, not merely another human being, but another human being of a particular race. The habit of, I actually do think most people in Western society is to talk about white people and never actually to mention the fact that they're white. That's the assumed norm. But as soon as they're not white, then it gets specified in one way or another. And that's what I mean by saying that they are raced by the culture.
I wondered how much Christianity was to blame.
I think Christianity is very important in understanding all of this. This is not at all to say you can't be Christian and be black, and this is obviously not true. And St. Augustine was black. There are two things about Christianity that are important. One is that it had this distinction between black and white. It used the distinction between black and white, first of all as polar opposites, and secondly as associated with black evil, white good. So it already had that. But in addition, it's very odd about the body, Christianity. In a way, although Christianity is all about the spirit become flesh, it's also about the importance of transcending the flesh.
So we have in Christianity, it's somewhere around the Crusades, let's say, a spirit-body split, and that white people were seen to have a body. But as you say, that body, what was important about that body was the spirit within the body.
And which could subjugate the body, which could transcend the body, which could control the body.
So therefore black people were the body itself with all of its various problems and so forth.
And both couldn't control their own bodies and needed to be controlled. I think it's important to say that the emphasis upon black people only being their bodies, I think that is actually later. I think when you talk about the Middle Ages and even the early Renaissance, there is a sense of black people being the infidel or being without Christ and all of those sorts of things. There isn't necessarily a sense that they could not be Christian. And, I mean, the key representation of that is the introduction of Balthazar, one of the three wise men that visited Christ in the stable. So, clearly, another example of a kind of the good black. And I think what all of those kinds of images, and of course the whole cult of the Black Madonna is very important, are a representation of the possibility that black people could be saved too.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and we had these holy cards that had Jesus as this blonde, blue-eyed, long-haired hippie type, and they were gold embossed and all of that. And I had no idea that there were any sort of black images of God or His mother until I moved to Europe 16 years ago and found out that they not only existed, but that they are integral to the history and the religion of this continent. In almost every country, there is a black image that is central to it. The Black Madonna of Częstochowa has been crowned Queen of Poland. I've been to Krakow myself, and I've seen her revealed to her devotees. On August 15th, a feast day of the Blessed Virgin Mary, in towns like Le Puy-en-Velay in France, a Black Madonna is brought out from the cathedral and carried in procession through the streets. When I moved to London, I discovered there was a Black Madonna in Willesden, just up the road from me. Pilgrims have been coming here since the Middle Ages, but the original Black Madonna was burnt on the orders of Henry VIII. Now there's a modern version, which I went to see with my friend Sarah Boss, an expert on Black Madonna shrines.
Look at this beautiful profile.
I know her lovely,
wonderful,
sort of
her nose.
lovely. It's an African profile. I mean, the back, this part of her, the nose, and the way
her breasts and her belly. It's
yes. The sort of power that she has, and of course she's holding out her son, who is God, and it's almost as if when you stand back and look at her, you know, you pull yourself back and really look at her. Her color invites you to come inside.
Yes. This is interesting in Willesden, I think, where there's a holy well here, that part of this is to do with the darkness of the earth. And the springs well up from the darkness of the earth, like, as though they're life coming out of a womb.
It's delicious, isn't it?
Certainly doesn't taste like London town.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. And this water is presided over by a black image. She is in a wild place, even in the middle of London.
It feels like that, doesn't it? I mean, originally this was all in the woods and was really wild.
Having talked with Richard Dyer about whiteness, I wanted to ask Sarah about the appeal of blackness for many Christians.
I really think that from a spiritual point of view, the blackness of the Black Madonnas is something to do with the significance of darkness and light being created out of darkness. You know, in the book of Genesis, at the very beginning, it describes everything as dark and without form, and then God creates light out of darkness, and then everything else follows from that. And it's almost as though that's a pattern for how the human person is as well, that we emerge out of a state of darkness spiritually to illumination. And I think all the world's great religious traditions are concerned with that journey. And so the Virgin Mary, in a way, stands for or participates in that sort of primeval darkness out of which something divine and light is going to emerge. So the light and the darkness belong together, I think. One author I read said the thing about the Black Madonna is that she belongs with the White Madonna and vice versa, that you move from one to the other and you can't have one without the other.
And too bad that that's not the way that we see human beings. Yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad. Sarah, how do you account for the split in the European psyche between the revered black image and the fear of real black people?
I sometimes think of that idea that psychological idea that what we most fear is what we most desire. But I think in an image such as this, in the Black Madonna, you have the desiring aspect, that this represents something that's sought after.
Is there any connection with the color of the statue having to do with the color of the wood of the tree?
I always used to assume that it was that, Black Madonnas were made of ebony or something like that. And then when I started reading about those that had actually been examined, and it turns out almost none of them is made of black wood. They're nearly all made of light woods, ordinary woods that are used for carving, boxwood, applewood, oak. And so they're light woods, and they're deliberately painted black. So that's one of the things that's very interesting when people say, oh, well, perhaps they've been blackened through candle smoke, or indeed there are legends about them being blackened through fire. But what's interesting, I think, is that people have gone on deliberately painting them black.
That fascinates me too, because what does that mean?